Joining us now is Sheitan Atigarin with stories trending around the world. Hello, Sheitan.
Hello, Dr. Ruben. It's a pleasure to see you. Hi, Tundu. Hi, Rufai. It's been quite a while. How are you all doing today?
Very well.
Great. All right, then. So let's kick off.
Well, you guys represented us very well over the weekend at Leila Johnson Salami's wedding.
It was definitely.
Congratulations, Leila.
Yes, it was definitely.
Congratulations. As the latest bride in town.
Yes. Having a few more people joining her soon. But let's start with what's trending here in Lagos, Nigeria, where the family and friends of late Sylvester Oromoni Jr. of Dowen College, Lekki, celebrated his first posthumous birthday over the weekend. Pictures of the celebration, which surfaced online, showed his family and friends struggling to cheer themselves up as they marked the occasion. And a way of sharing the grief and sorrow of Sylvester Oromoni'S family, Nigerians also lined flowers, teddy bears, and balloons in front of Dowen College to also celebrate the 12-year-old. The father of the deceased student, Sylvester Oromoni Sr., explained the reasons behind the posthumous celebration to Rice TV.
It's something I promised my son when he was alive. I told him because my wife gave birth to 11 of them. 11 of them. 4 boys and 7 girls. I lost one of the boys 30-something years ago. Then, out of this 11, he was the last. She delivered the rest 10 without CS, but this last one was through operation. That was where we stopped. So I promised that every year I will celebrate his birthday in a bigger form. I'll buy something for him. It occurred to me that even if he's not with us, let's mark his birthday. It wasn't celebration at church. It's just to mark the birthday and pray for his soul to rest in a perfect place. It's not a celebration of drinking and whining and eating. It wasn't that kind of celebration. It wasn't that type of celebration. It's a celebration to just say he died 5 days to his birthday. And something I promised to give to him. Even if he's not alive, I will still be doing it. And pastors will come and pray for the soul of my child to be with God in heaven. That is the reason for the birthday.
Well, on 4th of December 2021, Sylvester Oromoni would have been celebrating his birthday, like his father said. The Lagos state authorities said that they're going to investigate the incidents leading to Sylvester's death and ensure that no child goes through what he endured, as school places must be places for safety. That's a tweet from Amnesty International. Of course, another person on there says, I love how Sylvester's family celebrated him yesterday. He was so much more than the victim of bullying circumstances of his death. He loved games, dancing, and wanted to be a pilot. He lived and was joy to them. I'm glad they appreciated and continue to appreciate his life. The next tweet there reads, if Sylvester Jr.'s injuries didn't lead to his death, his trauma would have been dismissed as part of boarding school life. And that makes me sad because there are many children who are living with similar pains who will never get justice because violence is treated as normal. Of course, this story happened last week, very heartbreaking, very triggering for a lot of people that went to boarding school. And I think what this has done, of course, is highlight the fact that bullying does exist, and it is a very serious issue. I went to a federal school. I was in a boarding school for 6 years. And when I read that story, I actually started to get very emotional because there were times that I was and it's just a situation of you say something when you look at the consequences of what they actually do. And if you think of girl-on-girl violence, it's even much worse sometimes where they gang up on you and, beat you. I had to be taken, to an ICU when I was in JSS2, and nothing really happened to them. They were suspended, but then I was still picked on for a long time until I got into, my senior secondary. So to see that this ended in death, is really sad. The explanation of the posthumous birthday, I understand where he's coming from, and I love how Nigerians have rallied around this family, making sure that justice is served for Sylvester. Tundu, I'd like to know your thoughts.
I mean, Shweta, I didn't have that experience in boarding school, but as a parent, this is also triggering for me. There's no difference between Sylvester and my children. So this could really be anybody's child who ended up in this way. And it's just, it's heartbreaking. I have cried over this story. I'd just rather not do that on air again. But it's just, so imagine that children are capable of doing this to another child. But it's exactly like you said. Many of you, there but for the grace of God, that you were only injured, you were not actually killed. Because those children who went in a group to attack Sylvester probably did not have in their minds murder. But look at what they did to him. And the children must face justice because they have taken a life. They must be jailed, and that's just the facts of the matter. And as for the parents, we've heard some reports of some parents being flown out, and there's some also other reports that they've been suspended previously and then allowed to return to that school. I don't know why, as a parent, you go and pay for this shishi Doan College, your child messes up to the point of getting suspended and then comes back to that school. No. You withdraw him from private school and he goes to some other, like a public school. He must be punished for years for doing that. And this is the problem with a lot of parents that I find. A lot of parents coddle their children. And you see parents defending their child no matter what egregious nonsense the child has done. And I look at that and I'm like, I'm so sorry for you. One day you will pay a lawyer to defend that child. You must address what your child has done. If those parents had done the right thing when their children were suspended, they will never have been in a position to go back and be emboldened to even speak to Sylvester ever in their lives, much less dare to attack him again. I blame the parents, and the parents must also be brought to book. It's completely unacceptable. They have taken a life and they must pay.
Well, just to add a caveat to that, in terms of the response of parents of those students who were mentioned in association with the bullying of Sylvester Oromoni, at least one family, the Kashamu family, has issued a statement. The statement was issued yesterday indicating that their son, who was mentioned, Michael Adewale Kashamu, that he was not involved and that in fact he was a school father to the late Sylvester Oromoni, and the family said, look, their son is available to assist the school and the state government with investigations, and that they had spoken to him and that they wanted to assure the school and the state government of their full cooperation in the investigation. So that's one parent, one family out of the other families mentioned. But in all of this, you know, I think the important thing is justice for Sylvester. Bullying in schools is really very bad. There are many people who have had similar experiences, and they still continue to have the experience. And it's gotten worse. I think we should be alarmed that the school system in Nigeria now has become a reflection of the general society. You have children about 12 years, 13 years, you know, going to secondary schools who are joining cultic gangs. Okay, where did they get that from? Is it from their parents? And you have them, you know, also getting involved in drug, you know, consuming drugs and force-feeding other students with dangerous substances. Whatever happened, you know, to parenting in this environment? Perhaps, maybe going forward, apart from the investigations and all of this, I raised the point earlier with Taiwo Akinlame that we keep having reports of this bullying. You have the Premier College, Lugbe, you have the Deeper Life High School in Uyo, and now is Dowen College. These are reported cases. There are possibly many unreported cases out there. Now, in France, how is France dealing with this? Last week, the French Parliament, you know, passed a piece of legislation criminalizing bullying in schools, both secondary schools and universities. And the jail term is 10 years. Because in France, it is said that on an annual basis, you have cases up to about 700,000 cases of bullying, both physical and through the use of social media to intimidate students. In some cases, in many of the schools in France, this has resulted in students, young girls, committing suicide because they could not stand it. So they've come up with this strong legislation of 10 years. Whether you are a child or whatever, once you bully another student, you are going to jail. and the Minister of Education is defending it. He says, look, this is about protecting the values of the Republic. It's not as if it's a law meant to send children to prison. But if you bully another student, then you do the time for it. Yeah. So maybe perhaps we need some kind of very strong legislation in that regard, so that both parents and schools and other stakeholders within the education system will realize for something you may think is as ordinary as bullying, and it's not ordinary because it's beginning to result in deaths. We're having cases of sodomy. We're having cases of dangerous substances in schools. Then if the penalty is very stiff and nobody can hide under the cover of juvenile delinquency, then maybe, you know, everyone will sit up. And the point I made earlier, parents also should beware. The fact that the school has fine architectural structures, or that the school fees is very high. Oh, my son attends so school. We pay 2 million per term. That kind of snobbery, you know, it's not the point. It's about making sure that our schools are safe.
It's interesting. Rufai, I would like to know what you think. But it's interesting that you've spoken about the parents, but I'm not really, looking at the school as well, because the school released a statement confirming the fact that, this a particular topic, or this thing that happened rather, was because of a football injury. And if you listen to the interview that the father did yesterday, he said that the principal reached out to him to almost make him feel bad for releasing those videos, just to show how deep those wounds were for his son. But I just think it's an interesting place to look at the cover-up that happened.
Unfortunately, because your segment is at the end of the show. We had a guest earlier, Taiwa Kindami, and we discussed all of that with the school, so we went somewhere else. That's why, to explain your...
So the truth has to be said, Shaito, let's give it to ourselves the way it is. Let's not deceive ourselves. We have a society that supports bullying. That's why it's continuous. No matter the anti-bullying campaign we have in schools, no matter what we do, we have a society that supports bullying. And that's what we should change from. And this is just Sylvester today. More will happen. You saw even how the woman at the Deeper Life High School was bullied for saying her child was bullied. So we have a society that supports bullying in every ramification. And the fact that we have a very unequal society, that once you're bigger than the other person, you can trample on them and nothing will happen. Across every sphere of life. Is it not in the same society that a woman's shop was demolished, that a certain leader of a state said, go and die? And when the agitations were much, he begged her and invited her to come and drink tea. We have a society that bullies. From the political class, to the elite class, to the lower class. And except we come to terms with that, we are not going to go anywhere. Right. Two things I'll say. Number one, justice must be done. We must follow this case to a logical conclusion. I'm happy Michael Kashamu's family has said he's up for investigation. Then he should be talking to the police. Now, other people that were involved that were mentioned. Secondly, we in the media must follow this case to a logical conclusion. You see, because also it's about, it's trending now. But yes, we must also ensure that we follow it until justice is done. In Oromoni'S case, nobody's talking about that again. The Deeper Life High School boys case, nobody's talking about that again.
No, the school principal and other officials of the school have been remanded in prison.
Good.
So
we're happy to hear that.
Okay.
Other cases are still going unpunished. As we speak today, in Federal Government Girls College, Chagam, in federal schools all over the country, there are children that are bullying. We must start up anti-bullying campaigns across board in all the schools. All right, and if possible, go on the streets and let our voices heard on this bullying. It can even start from the front of the Dowen College. We should go there and let them know that it's not about profit alone.
Thank you, Rufai. All right, then let's move on to our next story. The British High Commission says it will pause making decisions on visitor visa applications from all red list countries, which includes Nigeria. The decision was announced in a statement issued on Sunday, saying to support the UK government's aim to protect public health from COVID-19 and associated variants of concern, UK visas and immigrations will pause making decisions on visitor visa applications in all red list countries, including Nigeria, until travel restrictions are lifted. Now, the UK had in less than 24 hours included Nigeria in the red list states, meaning that Nigerians without the British passport can't travel to the UK until further notice. Now, the next tweet there reads, viruses mutate, that's what they do. Use the holidays and travel season to push vaccinations. No vaccine, stay where you are. I don't get the reasoning behind this. Is this the plan for the next 5 years? Bans and partial lockdowns every time a new strain is found. Adetola's tweet there simply reads, the red lists are looking rather black. Now, this comes just a few days after the head of the United Nations condemned travel restrictions targeting African nations with reported cases of the Omicron coronavirus variant as a form of racist travel segregation. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres decried the restrictions after countries around the world announced the targeted level restrictions. Take a look.
We have the instruments to have safe travel. Let's use those instruments to avoid this kind of, allow me to say, travel apartheid, which I think is unacceptable. What is unacceptable is to have one part of the world that is one of the most vulnerable parts of the world economy condemned to a lockout when they were the ones that revealed the existence of a new variant that, by the way, already existed in other parts of the world, including in Europe, as we know. So this is a very strong appeal that I launch, appeal to common sense. With a virus that is truly borderless, travel restrictions that isolate any one country or region are not only deeply unfair and punitive, they are ineffective. And we need to continue summoning support and financing for sustainable domestic vaccine manufacturing in Africa. The people of Africa cannot be blamed for the immorally low level of vaccinations available to them, nor should they be collectively punished for identifying and sharing crucial science and health information with the world.
Very interesting words from Antonio Guterres, and I want to know what your thoughts are on this. The ban went into effect at 4 a.m. This morning, and now Nigeria is back on the red list, regardless of the fact that there are persons that have been fully vaccinated and even might have done their PCR test and might be seen positive. Right now, you have to go through that process. What are your thoughts?
Well, Canada has even gone further to reject PCR tests from Nigeria. So not only are Nigerians banned, if you're a Canadian citizen or resident and you're flying to Canada, you cannot present a PCR test from 10 African countries. That's how far they've gone. I could not agree more with Antonio Guterres. And let's note that this is the world's #1 diplomat. So they do know how to choose their language, and they tend to err on the side of being conservative with language. For him to use the phrase travel apartheid with the historical connotations of that word, he's speaking very strongly on this matter, as he should. And it's just really disgusting to see how COVID-19 as a pandemic, which has destroyed so many lives, devastated so many families, is being used as a political tool. What exactly is the difference between the UK government, which is supposed to be democratic and all la-di-da, and the Myanmar military junta, who has just jailed Aung San Suu Kyi for 4 years for breaking COVID rules? That is not why she's been jailed. It's politics. Yeah. So they're using COVID as a political tool. They're using COVID as a tool of discrimination to further just suppress us. And I spent all my indignation last week, because I knew this was coming. I did. It was obvious. The writing was on the wall since last week, when South Africa informed the world with full transparency, quite unlike China,
yes.
Quite unlike China, and we're punished for it. And I was like, well, we're next. And really, this is where we are. It's a disgrace. This is not based on any form of science. It is irrational. And this is the kind of pseudoscience that in which anti-vax theories thrive. And that's part of the problem that we're all facing. It's awful.
Yes.
Dr.
UK has banned 11 countries, put them on the red list since the announcement of Omicron. Most of these countries are from Africa. And so those who say this is a case of discrimination, a knee-jerk reaction, would seem to be right. Only 2 other countries have taken more extreme positions. Japan, that banned all flights from all countries. Israel, that also banned all flights from foreign countries. But look at the example of the United States. The United States has not banned any country. the United States is saying it will not impose travel restrictions. What the U.S. requires is a PCR test on the day of departure and also a 2-day PCR test upon your arrival in the United States. And I think it's interesting that the Coalition of Development Partners in Nigeria are organizing a COVID summit this week, December 6 to 8. We'll be inviting Antonio Fauci as some of the speakers. But the truth of the matter is that many countries of the world, they are panicking. They are resorting to prejudices. They are resorting to, emotional nationalism. Well, I don't know whether those two phrases can go together because nationalism is in itself an emotional response to certain situations. So that's the problem we have. And we think that the Nigerian government, some of us have said there should be reciprocal action. Even if they are not going to go that far immediately, then Nigeria should put its objection on record and not just take it as if, African countries, what can we do? Sovereignty is relative. Our sovereignty is not inferior to the sovereignty of the United Kingdom. But we'll see how it pans out.
Yeah. Rufai, very quickly, because we're about to end the show.
This is a very strong show of racism. Let's call it what it is. We must, in very strong terms, show that we are not happy about this because this doesn't follow the science, this follows sentiments, this follows imperialism, this follows the high-handedness that UK represents. Yeah. And for all of this, I asked them, once they halted this visa issuance, what about the backlog they have? Because now they are saying they wouldn't pay people back the money that have applied for the visa. They have a backlog that spans as much as May, and they're not saying anything about that.
The general pulse of the people is that Nigeria should add the UK to their own ban list as well. If nobody can be allowed to go into the UK, then maybe they shouldn't be allowed to come in here.
Well,
of course, this is where...
They also say you can withdraw your application if you want.
But they're not paying a refund.
As long as you have not done your biometrics
but
with the Visa Application Center. If you've done your biometrics with the Visa Application Center, then there will be no refund. But if you have not, you can withdraw your application. If you do not withdraw, the ban stays until the restrictions are lifted. But when will those restrictions be lifted? We hope that the United Kingdom will have a cause to review its position.
Very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.